was a terrifying scene.
Have you ever sat at a SeaWorld show and a whale swims right up to you, and for a split second you forget that it's wild? They look like giants pressed into a swimming pool, but that's just the part that doesn't sit right with me, bruh.
On February 24th, 2010, during the Dine with Shamu show at SeaWorld in Florida, guests were enjoying their lunch while watching trainer Don Brancho interact with the star of the show, Tilikum, the largest orca at SeaWorld.
I'll never forget sitting right there, so close the water sprayed my face. Watching a creature that size pass right by me was so insane.
But this lovely afternoon was about to take a dark turn.
To this day, you haven't been able to get the images out of your mind about what happened that day.
Correct.
Can you take us back to what you actually witnessed at the park?
I showed up at the pools where Tilikum had taken Dawn into, and it was very chaotic.
If it made the news, you knew it was catastrophic. That wasn't just panic in the stands. It turned into the darkest day a US theme park had ever faced. Man, something that heavy doesn't just fade. Families, workers, even the whole park, they all gotta live with that weight.
Dawn was at the edge of the pool rubbing Tilikum's head as part of her end-of-show routine. What happened next is remembered differently by witnesses. Some say Tilikum grabbed her by her ponytail. Others claim it was her arm or shoulder. Whichever it was, in a split second, Dawn was gone.
It happened so fast even witnesses contradicted each other. Trauma scrambles memory, the same way it does in violent conflict. That's why survivors of the same event often recall completely different stories.
The massive mammal had pulled her into the pool. The audience watched in horror, unable to comprehend the tragedy unfolding before their eyes. What followed was a terrifying scene as Tilikum violently attacked Dawn, holding her underwater for 45 agonizing minutes.
45 minutes underwater? That's longer than most whales can even hold their breath. It shows he wasn't just hunting, it was probably something far more darker. Most predators end it quick. A lion, a shark, and even a bear. What happened here was drawn out, unnatural, and beyond cruel.
Despite her love for the job, Dawn was also well aware of the dangers. She often acknowledged the risks involved in working with killer whales, and the risks were real. There have been more than 40 documented safety incidents involving trainers and orcas at SeaWorld and other parks.
40 run-ins ain't just some accidents stacking up. That's a straight up pattern, dog. At some point, you gotta call it what it is. Playing with death in plain sight.
So it should be no surprise that this wasn't Tilikum's first offense. Dawn was actually his third victim. Tilikum's story is one of tragedy and neglect.
When people grow in neglect, it warps them. Tragedy can twist how they act for the rest of their lives. Now imagine the same spiral inside a 12,000-pound predator, locked inside a tank. I seen it firsthand with my boy back home. Dad walked out and he carried that wound like an armor. It's not any different for a whale that's trapped with scars no one sees.
At just 2 years old, he was taken from his mother in the wild Icelandic waters and sent to a park called Sealand of the Pacific in Victoria, Canada. His name, Tilikum, means friend in Chinook, but his life was anything but friendly. At Sealand, Tilikum faced harsh and inhumane conditions. Food was often withheld as a training technique.
Imagine if your paycheck only came when you smiled on command. That's what they did with the food here, turning survival into a trick.
And he was regularly targeted and bitten by 2 alpha female orcas with whom he shared a tank. Performing 8 shows a day, 7 days a week, took a toll on him.
In orca pods, females usually run the show. For Tilikum, sharing the space with 2 alphas meant non-stop bullying. Think about it, wild orcas hunt and rest on their own time. Tilikum's clock was SeaWorld's schedule, not nature's.
Animal experts had long warned that Tilikum's aggressive tendencies, exacerbated by years of abuse and stress, made him a ticking time bomb. After years of this relentless performance schedule, Tilikum was about to have his first taste of blood.
Stress this deep doesn't just fade, it rewires behavior. A show that looked routine to the crowd could have felt like torture to an orca.
The orca's aggression first turned deadly in 1991 with the death of Kelty Byrne. She was a 21-year-old marine biology student who was working at SeaLand when she slipped and fell into the pool. She tried to come up for air, but Tilikum dragged her to the bottom of the pool twice, where he and other orcas bit her and held her until she drowned.
Orcas ain't moving on autopilot. They remember faces and they remember beef. Makes you wonder if he saw her as stress itself and not just another trainer. Yo, when you treat somebody foul over and over and over and over, they don't just forget. After a while, just seeing you feels like pain all over again.
According to some witnesses, Tilikum grabbed Kelty while the other two orcas prevented the park's staff from helping her. This shocking incident led to the closure of SeaLand a few months later. Tilikum was transferred to SeaWorld in Orlando, Florida in 1992.
They saw the warning signs and still brought him to SeaWorld. That's like ignoring a fire alarm, then acting shocked when a place burns down.
7 years later, the killer whale would claim his second victim.
Sheriff deputies have identified the 27-year-old man found dead in a killer whale's tank at SeaWorld. The victim is Daniel P. Dukes from South Carolina.
On January 6, 1999, Daniel Dukes, a homeless man, managed to sneak into SeaWorld at night and enter Tilikum's pool. The next morning, Duke's body was found draped over Tilikum's back.
Finding his body on Tilikum's back wasn't just disturbing, it was symbolic. That whale had turned into a warning nobody wanted to read. Blaming one trespasser was easy, but it masked the real issue. A system stretched thin and built on denial.
His body was severely mutilated. Though SeaWorld claimed he had drowned, the incident raised serious questions about the safety and ethics of keeping such powerful and intelligent animals in captivity. Animal rights activists pointed to the conditions Tilikum was kept in as a major factor in his aggression.
We label it an accident, but really, it's the cost of pretending raw power can never be made safe for showtime.
Trainers often allowed other whales to attack Tilikum until he bled, and he was kept in isolation for long periods of time, comparing his captivity to a human living in a bathroom their whole life.
First they starve him, then let the whales tear him up, then lock him in a box. That's straight up cruelty, dog. Ain't no debate about that. And here's the part that twists the knife. Every packed show filled their pockets with millions. Profit came first, the whale suffering came second.
Despite Tilikum's troubled history, Don Brancho formed a strong bond with him. Some trainers believed that Tilikum loved Don, making the attack on her even more shocking. On that fateful day in February 2010, Dawn's routine interaction with Tilikum turned deadly. After pulling her into the water, Tilikum thrashed her around, causing severe injuries.
Captivity can cage the body, but it can't cage the wild that's built into him, that's always waiting to surface.
As incredibly intelligent animals, orcas are very deliberate with their actions. Some people believe it was a desperate attempt to fight back. It might have been all the roughhousing, the constant demands of performing, or maybe the compounded years of abuse that finally caused the whale to snap.
Think about it. You keep pushing an animal that smart day after day, and it's not confusion anymore. It's frustration. From his side, it had to feel like nobody was hearing him, only using him. Facts, Mikey, and honestly, I feel bad for both of them. Trainers thinking they building a bond, and whales drowning in years of stress. That gap in the understanding is what turned deadly.
In the aftermath of Don's passing, SeaWorld implemented significant changes. The incident raised serious questions about the safety protocols at SeaWorld and the ethics of keeping orcas in captivity. They banned trainers from entering the water with orcas, aiming to prevent future tragedies.
They didn't rewrite the playbook. They finally admitted danger was baked into the act from the start. Every splash, every trick carried that risk that was ignored until it couldn't be anymore.
In the 2 decades before Don's death, SeaWorld had documented 100 instances of aggression or precursors to aggression, with 12 of the incidents resulting in trainer injuries or death. The tragic death of Don Brancho raised important questions about the ethics of keeping intelligent sentient beings like orcas in captivity.
100 warnings ignored ain't bad luck. That's people choosing to stay blind. And once you make that choice, you own every tragedy that follows. The moment we shrunk an ocean into a tank, the killing had already begun. The tragedy was set in motion long before the water even turned red.
Relationships between humans and wild animals will always be dangerous.